Mignon, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have this conversation today.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes. So, can you fill our listeners in to your entrepreneurial journey, where you've kind of come from, what the business looks like today, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, I started my business on the last $5 I had for dinner one week and turned it into a sought after destination bakery here in Nashville, Tennessee, also in New Orleans, Louisiana, that has been voted as best in both of their states. And then as one of the top 10 in the nation. We ship our cupcakes nationwide. And all that from a girl who didn't know how to bake, not even out of a box. But I am a believer that you can have whatever you say if you believe it. And so I was practicing my craft using science as my background to get me from where I was to where I wanted to be. So even though I was losing the house that the bakery is in now, and even though I didn't have any credit, and even though I didn't have any knowledge of the business, and I was losing everything that I had, it still was not enough for me to quit. And I think that's what I've learned in the process, that I'm strong and that we can do hard things.
Yes. And I cannot wait. I love going to Nashville. So now I'm going to hunt down your bakery when I get there. And Nashville's got some good food. So if you're voted best in Tennessee, I am already very, very impressed. So I cannot wait to do that. Okay. I want to know first, you weren't a baker, you started a bakery. Fill me in with that, please.
The man on the radio who I listened to regularly named Dave Ramsey, he was telling people that they could get out of debt by having a bake sale or a garage sale. Problem was, I didn't have anything I could sell because I sold everything to get get to Nashville from Atlanta where we were living. And so it was like, okay, well, we'll have a bake sale. Well, my daughters were really great bakers. They let me know soon after I presented the idea to them that they really weren't interested in mom's little bakery business idea. And the oldest was going back to New Orleans, where we're from, just after high school graduation. So without her, her 10-year-old sister is not interested in mommy's little bakery idea. So because I put a sign out on front of my door that said bakery coming soon, I believed that I had to keep my word to the entire world and figure out how to bake.
Okay, so much there. So you heard somebody who is financially further along than you give advice and you blindly took it. And I love that, because I think we need to sometimes kind of blindly take that advice of like a little bit more than I think we want to initially, because there are people out there further along than us telling us how they did it, what you should do, all of that. So I love that you took it and ran with it. I also think, like you're saying, putting the sign out holds you to that commitment, right? You don't want to put it out and then not actually deliver. So it kind of forces us sometimes to take that leap. So I love. Like those are all strategic points that I hope people caught. So incredible. Okay. So you now have 2 locations. How did you open up the one in New Orleans?
Yeah, so I went to New Orleans on a vacation, and being a New Orleans girl, I wanted to be a part of the rebirth after Katrina. It had been 13 years since Katrina when I went home for this particular visit and saw things in the city that I didn't recognize, like chains. We had grown up on mom and pop shops and places where your mom and them works, it's like, which is your mother and everyone else who didn't need a name because you know them,
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to complain about what I didn't like without doing my part to be a part of it. So I wanted to bring back to New Orleans what it taught me. And that was the flavor of the city. So I'd gone away from home, learned how to run a business, and I didn't want it just to be successful other places and not also be a part of the revitalization of the city coming back after this horrific storm that took a lot of people out and changed our family forever.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit. You start this bakery. How on earth do you get it to take off? What does that look like? Fill me in on the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that.
Yeah, I was networking. And so I was talking earlier today that networking isn't just gripping and grinning. It's not, hi, I'm Mignon Francois, because I'm a very shy person. So I'm not going to walk into a room even to this day and start, gabbing it up with people. Now I know how to walk into a room now and own that room, but it took me a long time to get to that place. So I began networking with people in my neighborhood. I would walk over and say, hey, I'm working on this recipe. I have a bakery coming soon. Will you try it? I would walk up to strangers, to real estate agents in my neighborhood, and I would ask them as they would tear down one house and put up 15, hey, would you try this? And those people began to come back and knock on my door and say, can I give you money for this? They would offer me money on the street for it and say, hey, I'll buy everything that you have left in your hand. It was a neighbor who wanted to share my product with everybody for the season that let me know that I had a business, because by the end of a week, I had earned $600. And this felt like control for me.
Yeah.
And for a girl who always felt like somebody had their thumb down on me and telling me what I can't do, this was freedom to be able to make my own decisions.
So when you started, I assume you started like most people, solo entrepreneurs, doing it all. You had your family. Does the family, do your children still work with you? Like, what is the story now?
Yeah. So I did start doing it on my own. I would have to get up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning just to prepare everything for the store and then keep the store open. At that time, I used to open it at 7:30 in the morning and close it at 7 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Well, my children would come after school and they would help clean up and things, but that's all they really knew how to do. Yeah. Now my children are back and they're running the show, creating processes. They've come back home to lead in the business and to give me a chance to not be in the daily grind. I've been working since I was 10 years old.
Wow.
So all of that by choice, of course, but that's just because when other kids were playing with Barbies and baby dolls, I was playing business because I liked sort of playing bank. And so my children are giving me an opportunity to take a break and do the things that bring me ultimate joy. And that is showing others what they can do if they also believe.
So good. So who is the first person you hired besides your family members?
Yeah. The first person I hired was someone to help me bake.
Okay.
And then there was a chef that was coming into the bakery all the time. She'd come in with her chef clothes on. And it was a huge thing to me that a chef was coming here every day, essentially to buy a couple cupcakes and go home. And so I started picking her brain on the porch and, offered her a part-time role. She's still in my life, all these years later. But some of the processes that she created from her experience are things we're still doing today, like the way we separate the back of the house from the front of the house, because we were all over the place. And sometimes we were overselling at the time and not having enough and not realizing, we had a really busy day and we couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
And so that's how I did it. That was the first person that I hired.
So it's so funny with when people complain about we're selling too much. We can't keep up. We're selling out. But you don't realize it really is a problem and it's not great when you're in it. So can you just talk about that for anybody who's thinking like, oh, poor Mignon, selling out and not keeping up with inventory? Fill us in, like, what is the struggle like when that happens?
Yeah, it's not having enough hands to get the job done or not enough time in a day to be able to make more or make it count, or figuring out where it makes more sense to say, if I'm not sold out by this time, then we have to just let it run out. Or if we're sold out by this time, it's way too early and we have plenty more time to go and try and sell it. We always wanted to be a business that was selling cupcakes we were making, within this 24-hour period. We didn't want the cupcakes to sit on our shelf and go bad, per se, when they could sit on your shelf at your house and give you much more time to enjoy them. And so while, many businesses find a way to say, well, I can mark it down or have different costs available to me, it's never been something that I wanted to explore, because to me, a bakery is for buying the things that were just made and then you leave it in your refrigerator, you leave it on your counter and you eat on it for days and days. And what I figured out in the process through the science of what cake is cake gets better as it rests.
Mm.
And so a lot of times people were telling me this stuff gets better when I take it home 4 days later. It's amazing. Yes, because I gave you the opportunity for you to enjoy your cake instead of it being 4 days in my building before you actually got your hands on it.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So everything you just said about, if this time, then we'll do this much, or if this, then Y, right? If X, then Z. So those are all systems. How did you decide? I'm sure there was a point where you didn't have those systems and you were learning from the lessons and the mistakes and all of that. At what point did you decide we've got to start putting in these systems and making up kind of rules, quote unquote, right? Of just like an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's a gradual or an ongoing conversation. Even right now, I spent some time with my girls just the other day, listening to them go through how they were going to overcome or create a process for something that's been a thorn in their side right now. I think it was that first hire that I had who showed me how to separate product out and allot the things that were pre-ordered versus the things that were going to go to the front end, and sort of figure out that people are cyclical. We kind of do the same thing that the next person is doing. So if it's strawberry season, our bodies tend to crave the things that strawberries make us feel. And so that would bring me higher sales in strawberries in that season. And so I would have to make more during that time. And I just think I learned process in that way, flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
Sometimes always not getting it right, but being willing to go back and say, hey, I apologize if that wasn't right. Can I fix it? And I think people always appreciate your transparency.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a great point is sometimes we, as business owners, see the holes in our business. We see the messiness and then we're embarrassed by it or there's shame around it. And honestly, you have to go through that messiness to figure out what is the right system and what's the right system for us. And I think you're just explaining it so well for people to hear, like, it's okay where you're at now, but use that information for the future.
Yeah. Amen.
So good. Okay. So what does your day-to-day look like? How involved are you in the bakery now? Like, have you gotten out of the operations? What does that look like?
So 2023 has been a game changer for me. I released a book called Made from Scratch, Finding Success Without a Recipe. And I have been on tour with that book. It went #1 in new releases on Amazon its second week out the gate. So Amazing. It put me in position to be interviewing and speaking and telling other people about what they could do if they believe. Only had to work one day in the production of the bakery this year.
Wow.
And I owe that to the team that brings their gifts and talents to the table that allow me to do what I offer to the world. And that's a bit of joy in the hardest of times.
So good. But it can also be so hard to leave your baby behind, right? To trust other people to carry on. So I want to hear, was it easy for you? Did you struggle? Fill me in.
That's a really great question. I love that you said, I never left my baby behind. So one of the things that I, like to explain is that a business is very much like a child. Mm-hmm. And in the stages of raising your children are kind of the stages that you're going to treat your business. So when my business was a baby, I was always there. As a mom who breastfed my children, or one that might be listening, you can really relate, because even the father cannot help you when it comes down to feeding the baby, unless you can, put something in a bottle, if the baby will agree to drink it out of a bottle, which my babies were always very particular about that. So I never left the baby in its infant stages. So those 0 to 1, I was always there. It wasn't until maybe my baby became about 5, just like my real life children, that I allowed them to go away on play dates or on trips with someone else and spend the night.
I love this.
Night.
I love this analogy so much. Thank you. Keep going.
And then by the time they was a preteen, I could say, all right, guys, I'm going to go to a meeting. I've got some things I would like to do. Can you hold the place down until I come back tomorrow? And so that's the way that I figured out how to share with other people when you know it's right to walk away from your business. I didn't leave until my business was almost a grown-up.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, I haven't walked out of the door. For me, it's been 17 years. The doors have been open 15, but for me, it's 17 years of my life because it took me 2 years working every day like it was a job before the business ever even opened.
Yeah.
So I never left it until it was a full-grown teenager who didn't want mom around anyway. And so, you know, that's even been part of it. It's like, we don't need you here. We've got this. We have all the tools and we can't get better if you keep staying. And I wouldn't say that I always did it right. We probably could have been a lot farther if I had just let the reins go a long time ago. But I think that there's something to be said for slow and steady.
Yeah. Well, and I think this analogy is so great because I think some business owners, a lot of us are visionaries. We have lots of ideas. Sometimes we want to start lots of businesses. And I love that you said, I didn't leave a baby. Like you already had, the baby was grown. Sometimes business owners are truly leaving a baby and it's not, you're not ready to start the second business. The first business is still in that infancy stage. So I think that analogy is just so powerful for somebody to really ask themselves, am I ready for this next chapter? What stage is the business in and does it need me? Now, I also think there's the opposite side of the spectrum where you've got the 40-year-old living in your basement and it's like time to let them fly, right? Like you've been holding on way too long. So I think everybody's just in a different stage and you really have to look within to figure out where are we at. So what has been the hardest part for you letting go, building the team, scaling the business? Does anything come to mind?
Oh, yeah. The hardest part for me is to let them lead. You know, it's like, have you ever seen that movie, Nemo? And Nemo wants to go off and do things that his father doesn't think he should be able to do. Yeah. And he's like, you can't do these things, Nemo. But in fact, Nemo has to try to go out and do things. And Nemo's going to get hurt and Nemo's going to possibly get in danger. But they've got to give Nemo the space to be able to grow. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me. When you're a leader who also gave birth to the leaders. Yeah. Not only am I leading them, I also gave birth to them. So it's kind of like you think you know all of the things that they're capable of, but you got to give them wings so that they can try new things and be able to say, because a family business is something in and of itself, right? Yeah. And, you know, there's dynamics there in a family business, and then bringing other people into a family business that they have to deal with that people who just work in a corporation don't have. Yeah. So I think the greatest thing for me has been watching them have big dreams and goals for the business and allowing them to make mistakes and to be able to say, hey, like this could have been done better, or we can't allow this to happen. But at the same time, when I sit back and I just let it be what it is, I think they always figure it out. But that's been a hard learning curve for me as their mom and as the leader.
Yeah. I grew up in a family business, watching my parents, my uncle, my grandparents all work together. And then I have a business where family works as well. And I think a lot of people listening, there's a lot of people that hire their sister, or hire, mom or whoever. And there are definitely challenges, but I think if you can do the work and really figure it out, it's a beautiful thing in the end to be able to work with family, but it definitely comes with its challenges. So yeah, I love everything that you're saying.
I think the other challenge of working with family is also just working with people, because there comes a time where because we're a family, people tend to probably can stay with us in a longer space. And they kind of feel like family. Yes. And so there's that challenge also to, hey, don't forget, not one of your kids. But at
I
the
love
same
it.
time, I want to be treating my children and my team all with the same level
Yeah.
of respect.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you open your second location? How long was the first one already open?
So I opened a second location in 2010, not the one in New Orleans, but I
Okay.
opened one in 2010, which is about 45 minutes north of Nashville.
Yeah.
And then I opened another one in 2014. So 2 years in, I had one. And then in that third year, I believe it was, no, it was 2 years in that we came with a food truck.
Okay.
And then the food truck was so popular, we opened a location. And
Got it.
then we opened another store and we realized we could use the food truck to help us decide where those places were going to be. So
Smart.
it
Yeah.
was about 2 years in. People were asking for it and we felt like we could do it.
What were some of the challenges with opening up multiple locations?
Yeah. Making sure that it was the same in each location. And I wanted to own my own recipe. I wanted to be able to keep it to myself. I wasn't willing to share how I made what I did.
Yeah.
I feel like our flavor is our claim to fame, and I didn't want to show anybody else how to do it. So it's taken me a while to figure out how I could have other people assist me have
Mm,
the same flavor experience wherever they get it, and how was I going to also keep the recipe for myself. And I think we finally figured out how to do that, but it did require me to give up some of the reins for that to happen. And that
yeah.
was not an easy thing to do. Some of it happened with me kicking and screaming the entire way. And one of the things that I'm always willing to say is, okay, well, I was wrong. You were right. You know, and then make faces the whole
Yeah.
time. But at the same time, sometimes I do know what's better for it.
Mm,
Um, and getting that opportunity from them has helped me to also figure out mostly they're right and I'm wrong.
yeah.
But let's put that on the table. Mostly my team is right and I'm wrong because I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. So if
Mhm.
I'm the smartest person in the room, I don't need you. So most of the time it's me who has to go back and say, all right, the better idea.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So I want to ask just there's been so much that's gone on, right? Especially for people that have brick and mortars, COVID, limited resources, imposter syndrome pops up. You've got inflation, recession talk, all of the things. What are your tips to really cultivate that confidence when it feels like you just can't catch a break in what you're doing?
Yeah. I think for me, there's this story that I heard about animals on the African tundra that a giraffe can't bend his neck down to hear what the turtles are talking about because the turtles can't see what the giraffe can see. The giraffe has a vision over the entire tundra, and the giraffe knows what's going on. The way his heart is set up, if he bends his head down too long, he's going to pass out trying to see from the turtle's perspective, when
Mm,
in fact, he knows what's going to happen. And so that's what I want visionaries to know. You've got a gut feeling on the inside. You know what you dreamed for your business and what you wanted it to be. You can see the bigger picture of what's happening on the tundra. So don't get sidetracked by what others have to say
mm,
about what it is that you can see because they can't see the way you see it. That would be one of the biggest things. And then I would say that fear is false evidence appearing real.
mm.
Like we often fear things that are never going to happen. It usually doesn't happen in the way we if and then it. Right. If this happens, then that problem will happen. And if she says this to me, then I'm going to, and it never
Mm.
happens the way that we think it's going to happen. In fact, you're often on the same page with the people who you spend most of your time with. So at the end of the day, we fear things that are not actually real things to be afraid of. And I think that gut feeling on the inside of you that's telling you you've got this is the one that's telling you
Mm.
that's telling you the truth.
So good. Oh my goodness. Your analogies are like so spot on. I love it. Okay. So you've done a lot. Like your resume is stacked right now. More to come. I want to know what is next for you.
Yeah. I am interested in creating, the space that I want to be a part of. I just finished this book. I want to speak more. I promised God that if he made me successful, I would tell anybody who would listen about what they could do if they believe.
I
So
love
I
it.
want to be doing more of that. I want to build a community around that very thought so that people will know that they have a space to be able to grow and come and learn and take what they have back out into the community and effectively create what they want to see. And I want to be a cheerleader for that so that they can know what they can do if they believe.
So good. Okay. I love that you said, I want to create the space I want to be a part of. Most people are like, okay, there's this room over here and I want to get in that room. You're like, oh, I'm going to create it. I love it. And it just reminds us we have so much more control when we think that way. Right? Oh, so good. Your story is so inspirational. I can feel the passion. I hope they're watching this, not just on the podcast, but on YouTube, where you can actually see your beautiful smiling face, because you have so much like positive energy just like exuding from you. And I guarantee that that has been a massive part of your success. People can feel good people, right? And I think that's just a reminder too of like, you just heard all the things you want to do. And it comes through in your bakeries, I am sure.
Yeah. I definitely believe that, there's no one as dope as you, that you get to bring your personality and your spin to whatever it is that you want to do. And that doesn't just exist for me, that we all have a space that we were placed in the world, a calling that is going to manifest when we show up into the room. And I'm hoping that that's what people will hear me say, that I just want to be the poster child of, well, she did it, so maybe I can do it too, because I want to be a living witness to that fact.
Yeah, so good. So everybody's business has ups and downs. Like no one's just, it's amazing all the time. There are definitely moments of struggle. For somebody who might be in a struggle moment right now, what would you go back, like, let's say you go back to the Mignon who was struggling at that moment. What does she need to hear to get back on track and get like re-inspired?
Yeah. Struggling in debt, I would say that go back to your past to show you what your future is supposed to be. There are lessons that were left along the way, and you can pick up from those crumbs to feed you right now. I would say that the way that I got through anything is the way that I got through everything, a little piece at a time. And I've heard it say like this: how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's the way I attacked all my struggles. I might not know all of the things that I need to know to be able to answer these questions, but I'm definitely able to get in relationship with somebody who does know. And so I think my relationships have served me very well in places where I didn't have the answers.
So good. All right. Where can we buy these cupcakes? Where can we buy the book? Please fill us in on all the places we need to go immediately after.
Yes. So the book is available on Amazon. It's called Made from Scratch, Finding Success Without a Recipe. They can order cupcakes 24 hours a day on theCupcakeCollection.com through our partnership with FedEx. And then
what is like the cupcake we have to get? Like, what's the flavor? What's your must have?
Sweet Potato is a Cupcake Collection original. We are definitely not your little kids' cupcake shop. Yeah. Little kids who come to the Cupcake Collection are kids that have a discerning taste bud. So I would say that it's not that little kids don't want this, but this is definitely an adult experience. Okay. So we have flavor profiles that should speak to my heritage. So they're going to take you all the way down into the deeps of the bayou in Louisiana.
I love it. So good. Any place else they need to check out or go? Did we say it all? Yeah. Put it in the show notes.
So I would definitely say that they could follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And that's on Mignon.Francois, or on Facebook and Twitter as well. Twitter is Cupcake Tweets.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a fun conversation. I am really looking forward to this cupcake. I'm going there. I'm going there now. Thanks, Mignon.
Thank you so much for having me.